Hi, welcome back to Book Buzz with Jana Pang, a podcast where we talk about romance books, our current reads, and we also have the pleasure of sitting down with some of our favorite authors and chatting with them about their amazing books.
Hi everyone. I hope you guys had an amazing week. My week has been pretty good. I actually read more than I read last week. Maybe the same. But it's still the weekend, so that means I can read during the weekend. So yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
And the book, because you know how we mentioned that we were going to be rereading The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, and because we're going to be interviewing Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't wait to talk to her. That book, y'all, that book. I can't. So yeah, we finished reading that and it was absolutely phenomenal. Okay, I'm gonna say I didn't expect it to be the way it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we'll get into that when we're talking to her. All I'm gonna say is it's amazing. It has some of our favorite tropes. It's forbidden, enemies to lovers, brothers, girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we hope you all enjoyed today's episode. So please sit back, grab some coffee because I have my coffee. And we hope you enjoyed today's interview and we're so excited.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us today. It's definitely an honor to have you here on our podcast. We can't wait to talk to you about your book, especially The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. And so just to start off this interview, how are you doing so far?
I'm doing really well. I've just been watching Love is Blind with my kids. I don't know if did you guys watch the first season?
Yes.
You did. Have you watched any of the second season yet?
I have not. I'm like waiting until I'm but I'm dying to watch it.
It's so good. Even my son was like, oh God, I don't want to watch this. And then he was completely sucked in. I was like, I've got to go, you guys, I've got to do this interview. And he was like, okay, so when are you going to be done? So we can find out what's happening with whoever, Shane.
I can't wait to watch it. But it's like Pang said earlier, it's such an honor to have you here. We recently finished The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, and I have so many questions for you. That book was phenomenal. I loved it. I couldn't put it down. I cried. I'm not gonna lie. But going back a little bit, how can you talk to us a little bit on how you got into writing? What pursued you to write romance in general?
So I was a journalism major in college, and then I was a medical writer. And so I wrote like the boring brochure you get about like amniocentesis or heart surgery or whatever. I was the person who would write that kind of stuff. And I did that for a long time. And then I had kids, and I had not read a romance in ages. And then a friend of mine gave me, this is so embarrassing, but she gave me the Twilight series. And I'm like, dude, I'm not reading a bunch of teenage books about vampires. And she's like, you've got to read these books. And so I was like, and I was sucked in. I read like the entire series in 2 days or something crazy. And then it just kind of like, all of a sudden I started reading all this indie romance, and I had not read it in so long. And then I was just kind of obsessed with it. And I attempted to write a Twilight fanfic piece. And the funny thing is, like, I used to be like an editor professionally, and this Twilight fan fiction site rejected me, and they said my capitalization was wrong. And I was like, oh no, it wasn't. But so anyway, so that's how I got started. And then, I wrote my first book, Undertow, in a couple of months, and I published it. And I didn't tell any of my family because I was really worried that it was just going to like be like made fun of or whatever. And it did kind of well. And so it just worked out.
Was romance always the main one for you, or was it a different genre that you wanted to write?
No, I had not really thought in a long time about trying to write. I mean, everybody thinks like, oh, it'd be cool to write a book one day, but I had never really even tried. I just hadn't. And then I was busy with my kids. And then I started reading all this romance. And once I did, it was kind of like, I can't imagine writing anything else. So
How long have you been writing for?
I published Undertow in 2013. So, and that's pretty much, I wrote it. I started writing that in May and I published it in August. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What has changed from when you first start your first book to your latest release?
Like in the industry or with my writing?
With your writing?
I mean, I feel like I know a lot more about how a book is supposed to progress. And, you know, there are like rules that kind of go across all genres. Like at 80%, you have this dark moment where things fall apart, and you're going to find it in a mystery, and you're going to find it in pretty much anything. And in movies too. And like, you know, and so there are just like these basic rules that I didn't know. And I feel like people kind of do them intuitively anyway. But I've definitely learned a lot from like the editors I've worked with, you know, in the meantime. And, you know, they'll just be like, I had one editor who was like, you never tell us where the people are physically, and we need to be able to see it. And, you know, so with each book, you learn a little more, and then you kind of throw that into your writing.
Do you ever look back at like your first book and wish you could go back and change some stuff to that?
Oh, I already have. I do it all the time. I haven't gone back to my first couple of books in a while. And I'm actually kind of scared to look at them because I'm like, oh God, I know I'm going to think they're horrible. But no, I definitely went back with Undertow after a few years, and with the book that I put out after that. And just, I mean, I didn't change them substantially, but I did like tweak stuff where I was like, oh, you can't do that. Oh my gosh, like just little stuff I didn't know. And even actually recently, I wrote this book a couple of years ago, Waking Olivia, about a coach and an athlete. And I'm not going to make any substantive changes to it because it's done pretty well. But I went back to read that because I needed to write a new bonus scene for it. And even with that book, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. How? Like, I'm going to see if I can tweak it without anybody noticing. So.
In your opinion, what do you think it's important, the most important elements of good writing?
Honestly, I mean, I think that the story itself probably matters more than the writing. Like, I've like, you know, if you can read a book and you can get 5 pages in, and you can just be like, God, I'm so bored. I can't keep going with this. And it could be the best written book in the world, but if you're not going to read it, it's not a good book for you. So, and then I've also read like books that, you know, like you would look at and you'd say, technically, this is a really poorly written book, and I cannot put this book down. Like, I'm going to read to the bitter end. So I think it's the story that probably matters most ultimately.
Have you ever experienced writer's block? And if so, how do you get out of it?
I never don't experience writer's block. That's like a constant for me. But yeah, I mean, I've gone through lots of periods, and like, I say this about this book, but I'm writing the sequel to Devil in the Deep Blue Sea about Ben. And the first half just came, and I love it, and I'm thrilled with it. And now I'm at the second half, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's due in a month. But I go through this with every book where I feel like it won't come together. And I generally end up like watching a lot of TV and watching a lot of movies, trying to get myself inspired. Like if I have a character in mind that I want this person to be like, I might watch like the movie Divergent. The guy, the star of that movie, Theo James, the guy, was kind of my model for Will in Waking Olivia. And I probably watched that movie 10 times when I was writing Waking Olivia. So.
How long does it usually take you to write a book? Like, is each book different, or do you set yourself a time so you write the same amount of time for each book?
It's always different. My problem is I generally can write a book really fast, but then I spend like 9 months screwing around with it. So you're not supposed to do that, especially as an indie, you really can't. But like The Devil in the Deep Blue, or not The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, A Deal with the Devil, I wrote in like 2 weeks. And it just like, it came to me, like there was no writer's block. I was thrilled. I loved this book. And then I spent like almost a full year tweaking it and changing it. And but it's generally like, I'm trying to write faster. But it's going to take me at least a solid 3 to 4 months to write it and then edit it.
And for when you're writing a book, are you the author that picks a title before you start a book, or do you wait until the very end until you pick a title?
So normally I wait until the very end. But I'm really bad about, and I'm trying to be better, but in the past, I've always like, you know, a lot of people will like have their cover and their title done, and they've got it all planned and booked. And I was always too scared to do that. So like with The Deal with the Devil, that book was completely 100% written. It was done before I ever thought about a title and a cover, anything. And so now, I mean, I can't really afford to do that. So, and actually, since I've already got that first book in the Devil series, you know, there's only so many titles you can come up with that have Devil in the title. So it kind of narrows the range a little bit.
So for readers that haven't read your books, how would you describe your stories to them?
I would say that for the most part, actually all of them are kind of angsty, slow burn romances. And I've got 4 that are paranormal, the parallel series, but they feel, I think for the most part, they feel more contemporary than they do paranormal. And they too are angsty, slow burn. Like, you're never going to see anybody in my books have sex before like 70% of the book. So
can I just say that discrete covers for the parallel series are gorgeous.
oh, thank you. I love those covers so much.
We were talking about it yesterday. We're like, oh my God, they're so cute.
Emily Whittig did those covers, and I thought she just did such an amazing job. I was so in love with them. I was at the beach with my kids when she sent them, and I like was showing them to like everyone who would look at this cover. I was so excited about them.
How much world building takes place before you start writing?
None. I normally start off with like an idea of just the interaction between the main characters, and like what their like general like vibe is going to be. And I will have an idea in my head of like some like back and forth. And usually it's them antagonizing each other, because most of my books involve the people, they're mostly enemies to lovers and they're antagonizing each other. And, or I might have an idea of a sex scene. And so I'll write that sex scene before I write anything else, that and a little bit of the banter. And then I kind of create a story around it.
So you write out of order. So you write certain scenes first and then you put everything together, or do you write almost everything first and then bits and pieces everywhere else?
It really varies, but like with the Devil in the Deep Blue, or not with Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, with A Deal with the Devil, I had the idea for their sex scene before I had written most of the book. So if I've got the idea, I go ahead and write it. And like with the book I'm writing now, I've got the ending written, but I don't have like the middle 30% written. So
that's really cool. What are your opinions, or I should say, do you read your reviews whenever your book goes live, or do you stay away from reading any reviews at all?
So I have in the past read the reviews, and initially, and I guess still to some extent, I would read some of the reviews, and I would just make sure that like I read early reviews just to make sure that there isn't, especially before the book has come out, because you know, you still have that at that point, if there's something glaringly wrong with it that you didn't know about, you have time to change it. So I do read early reviews, because if there's ever, it hasn't happened yet, but if there's ever a theme where everyone's like, I hated that she did this, then I would like to know that and fix it before, you know, because I think it's really easy for readers, especially female readers, to hate the heroine, and like we're so judgmental of the heroine. And like my editor always says, like the hero could come in and he could take a dump on her floor, and all the readers are going to be like, oh, but it's okay.
Yeah.
This is her childhood. And like the girl can just like make the mildest mistake and people pile on.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
We always tend to defend the hero, always,
right,
for some
we
reason.
give them weight. And what my editor says, and I think it's so true, is because women are so much harder on themselves, so they're harder on other women as well. But so yeah, so I do read some reviews, but I generally try to stop reading them. And I did when Devil in the Deep Blue Sea came out, like my editor actually liked it better than Deal with the Devil. And I preferred Deal with the Devil. And then I got one review that wasn't good, and I was devastated. She's in Australia, and I called her and I'm like, I got this bad review. I want to pull the book. And she's like, do not pull the book. The book is great. Don't pull the book. So, but yeah, so I mostly try to stay away from it.
You did mention that you kind of look at the early reviews. And so do readers' opinions or comments inspire you to write a book or take a story in a different direction than when it was first planned?
Well, the thing is that I don't like by the time the arc comes out, it's like 2 weeks before I publish. So I really can't tweak it that much. It would be more like a minor thing, like like if people had really freaked out about in Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, if I had seen 100 readers come back and say she was such an idiot to go to Somalia, who would be that dumb, then I might go in and be like, change it somehow. But I couldn't, it's too late to change the whole plot. So
yeah.
Has there ever been a moment to where your readers start commenting that you wish you would have done this, and that idea inspires to write a different type of story, maybe?
Oh, not really. I think a lot of people said with Deal with the Devil, they wished it was dual point of view, which I feel like influenced me to write dual point of view for the next book. But no, I don't know. I get inspired by like some little tiny weird idea, and I just kind of have to go with it.
And with that you said with the dual point of view, what's easier for you to write, the male's perspective or the female's perspective?
Oh, I wouldn't say one is easier than the other. I think it's way easier to write dual point of view than it is to write single point of view. It's 1,000 times easier. But personally, I actually prefer books that are single point of view because I like to not entirely know. So my goal with my books is always to do a single point of view. And then sometimes I just can't make it work. Like with Deal with the Devil, it was hard because, there were issues on both sides and things that he was keeping from her. And, but yeah, I prefer single point of view. So.
Well, I'm so happy you did dual point of view with the Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, because getting his perspective, and I'm getting ahead of myself, it hurt. And you learn to understand where he's coming from and why he was the way he was. So I love that. So thank you for doing that.
Well, and I think especially when the guy is kind of a dick, you sort of have to it's hard. In Deal with the Devil, he was kind of a jerk. So, and I initially did write that dual point of view, and then I took his point of view out. But yeah, it's really hard when the guy is a jerk because you kind of have to be able to show why he's a jerk.
While reading The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, all these locations, like how you describe Hawaii and in Somalia, how are you familiar with all these locations? Or do you just use Google Map or YouTube, watch all these videos, or have you been there? Or
So I generally won't write anything that doesn't take place somewhere that I've spent a lot of time. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a lot, but I've probably spent like 6 weeks to 2 months in Hawaii and the different islands. So I feel, and that's all been in the past like 4 or 5 years. So I felt really familiar with Hawaii. And then like the Parallel series takes place in France, and I've spent a fair amount of time there, and in DC where I live. I have never been to Somalia. No one who reads that book should ever be inspired to go to Somalia. It's like one of the most dangerous countries in the world, if not the most dangerous country in the world. And actually reading about Somalia really hammered that home. It's not a safe place to go. So I watched a lot of videos about Somalia, but no, I did not go to Somalia.
And I know you mentioned a little bit how you were inspired from the Parallel series by Theo James from Divergent. What inspired you overall for that series?
Well, actually, for the Parallel series, I had this idea, I don't know if you've read Parallel, but I had this idea of a girl, and it starts off with this girl who is checking out a location for her wedding, where they're going to have the wedding, the reception. And all of a sudden she just gets really kind of has this really odd feeling. And then she passes out and she's someplace else. And so I just had this idea. And at that point, I didn't think that it was going to be time travel. I was just like, what would happen if this happened? And all of a sudden she could see how much better her life could be somewhere else. Because I think that to an extent, a lot of people don't know how much better their lives could be because they haven't had that, and if you were raised in a crappy abusive household, then you don't realize how much better life could be outside of that, maybe. So I think that was the basis for it. So I had that one little tiny idea, and then I just kind of said, well, how could that happen? And I kind of just kept playing around with it until I figured out how it could happen.
And when you wrote that series from the start, did you know how many books it was going to have, or did they come as you finished the story?
So I had intended for it just to be one book initially. And then that book got to be so long that it was going to be like a Sarah J. Maas, massive, tome. And you can't do that with an indie. Like you can't, so I split it into two. And as I was writing the second book, I came up with the idea for Sarah's story. And and I realized that, it was going back in time and back in the story, and it probably wasn't going to sell very well, and it hasn't. But I loved the idea of Sarah's story so much that I was just like, oh, the hell with it, I'm going to write it. And, and it doesn't sell well. It's still in my top 2 favorite books that I've ever written.
Are any of your books in audio and what do you love most about audiobooks?
So yes, all of my books except for the Parallel series are in audio. And I'll eventually get around to doing the Parallel series. I should have already done it, but I didn't. And the truth is that I only listen to, I've got kids. And so I don't really listen to romance on audio because I'm terrified that they're going to get in the car and it's going to be some sex scene. And, I'm going to pull up to carpool to pick up my children. And then the whole school is going to hear him grunting. So I'm just too scared to listen to romance on audio at this stage in my life. But yeah, so, I love that they're out there because obviously a lot of people seem to prefer audio. So,
All right. So we do want to talk about the Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. So we finished it, and I'm going to say, I didn't expect the book to be how it was. My heart hurt for Drew. It absolutely hurt. And you wrote it in a way to where you dive the reader into that character and you're feeling what she's feeling. Every time she gets hurt or belittled, or, they put the blame on her when she didn't do anything wrong. And it literally feels like you're the one in there feeling everything. And it was amazing. How did you develop those two characters to where giving him his arc and her, because she does have asthma, and she hides that from the public. How did those two develop?
Oh, honestly, with all of my books and in this one too, I kind of start off with the relationship between them. And then I kind of just walk backward. I used to be a therapist. And so, that's, I kind of look at it from that perspective and what would have had to happen in the past to create this dynamic now. And if she's really scared of committing to someone or, opening herself up like that, what would have happened in the past that would make her terrified of it? And so I just kind of come up with their story that way.
I have to continue with what Jan said. While reading the book, I seriously felt like I was in her shoe, and I feel so bad. I don't know how many times I've cried in the book. And we've said many times, if a book doesn't make you cry, then it's not as good as a book that makes you cry. And so and I have to say, it's definitely from the books that I've read so far this year, it's definitely one of my favorite ones that I've read, because the love that Josh showed for Drew, it is seriously beautiful. I don't know, he is definitely book boyfriend goals. And the way how he is always there to support and help her was everything. And I don't know if everyone's read it, but when she went to Somalia, oh my gosh, my heart was so scared for her. And when I understand Josh was really scared for her, but the way how he treated her when she got to Somalia,
yeah, it was bad.
Oh my gosh, it hurted me so hard. I was like, no, don't do this to her.
Yeah,
because she tried so hard. She literally forget her schedule and just to go see him in Somalia, and it was painful, but seriously, it was a beautiful book. Thank you so much for writing that book.
Thank you.
Did you have any inspiration for Drew, or did you have anybody in your head while you were writing Drew and Josh?
So I often do have a particular person in mind, and With this one, I didn't so much, except that I came up with the idea for Drew when I was writing Deal with the Devil. And I was listening to, and I know I'm going to say her name, Dua Lipa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to a ton of her stuff. And I actually in the book, Drew hates her music. And I actually don't, I think Dua Lipa is really talented and I think her music is great. So it's not a reflection on her, but I did kind of have it in my mind, this idea of like this singer who is, singing these kind of like poppy kind of sexy songs. And the thing is that I normally listen to kind of like my kids say, everything I listen to sounds like it's music from like a movie about the apocalypse. Like I normally listen to like really dark alternative indie music. And so it was a different thing for me. And I was like, what if she was really into this other thing, but she got pushed into this career? So, but no, I didn't have anybody. Deal with the Devil. I had the Tom Ellis from Lucifer. Like he was it. Like he was 100% in my head and no one else. But yeah, for this one, no, I didn't have anybody specific for either of them.
How did you come up with the gorgeous covers though? Like the model and the cover, I think that's what called my attention, the beginning, and then the title, because I was like, the title is it's intriguing. You're like, what is this going to be about? And then you dive into a story and it's nothing like I expected. Because it is a little bit forbidden as well, because we were talking about it. So it's like, how was it? I know you spoke a little bit about your titles, but how do you come up with your titles? Because that one I thought was so perfect for the book.
So the first book in the series was The Deal with the Devil. And because she was actually making a deal to work for this guy that she absolutely loathed. And it was a guy that she was always referring to as Satan. So it just kind of seemed like a fitting title. And so I wanted to continue with that. And then this one is just taking place in Hawaii. And I don't know, it just kind of fit.
Would you ever write more Drew and Josh?
Oh, probably not. I mean, they appear in the next book because the next book is Ben's story. And so they're in that. And their story is moving along too. And people are going to have kids and stuff. So that'll all be in that next book. But yeah, like once they're, I always tell my friends, like, I'm not interested in reading about happy couples and I don't want to write about happy couples. I only want to write, like, once I get to like the point where they've like had their trauma, I'm really bored with the book and I just want to be done. So yeah, I'm probably not going to write about that too much.
I was just telling Jan that I wish there would be a small novella for Josh and Drew, because I was like, I love them so much. I hope you would write a novella for them.
Well, there was the honeymoon bonus. Did you see that?
Yes, I saw it.
Okay.
I haven't to read it, but I saw it. Yeah.
Maybe I'll do a Christmas novella for them.
Yes.
Okay.
But Christmas is like so far away. With this book, what scene was the hardest for you to write?
Well, actually, I mean, the one that was hardest for me to write was actually and it's a very small scene, but it's when Josh takes his mom up the Kalalau Trail because he knows that she's not going to be able to finish it. Because my mom died of cancer a couple of years ago. So I was kind of reading that. I was writing that, but I was thinking of it from her perspective and how hard that would be to know that you were going to die and to know that there was just so much that you weren't going to be able to experience. So when I was writing that little scene, like nobody else even references it, but I was bawling when I was writing that scene.
And that brings me to ask you, do you usually cry while you're writing your books?
No. The only times I have ever cried when I am writing a book are with that. And then there is a scene in the last book in the Parallel series where she's just kind of reflecting on the fact that her daughter is going to be gone. And without giving away too many spoilers, she's talking about the fact that it happens to every parent, that there's a time when your kids can no longer sit in your lap and there's always going to be a last time for everything. And at that point I was getting ready to send my son off to college. And yeah, man, I was just, I can't even read that now without crying. Somebody posted that a little bit of it on an Instagram story. And I was like, oh,
like, don't make me think about it.
Yeah.
But that is so crazy because like Pink said, like, you don't cry with your books, but while reading this one, I think it hurt so much while we were reading that I couldn't stop crying. Like there's a scene where she's drowning and Josh saves her. I don't know why that made me break. Like I was at work and I shouldn't have been reading at work because I literally started crying. I was like, oh my God.
Oh,
But
really?
there's something about the way that I guess that's where she lets the curtain fall a little bit and gives Josh a side of her that she was hiding.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that's when we saw how vulnerable she was. And it hurt. I was like, oh, I felt so bad for her.
No, I don't normally cry over that kind of, I mean, I think it's only mostly when it's related to my children, I will cry. And otherwise,
You're like, not the books.
yeah.
So you did mention that Ben's book is next.
Yes.
So will there be more books in this series, or will just be 3 books?
I think actually, because this is what always happens to me is I start writing a book and then I've already got the next book in my head and I've already started writing scenes from the book that comes after Ben's book because I get these ideas in my head. I'm like, I better write this out while I can. And so, yeah, I think there will be another one. And I would like it to eventually do a story about, I don't think y'all have read A Deal with the Devil, but there was her younger sister, Charlotte. I would like to do Charlotte's book eventually too.
Will 6B, he was quite a huge jerk, but
yeah,
will he get a book to redeem himself?
I have gotten so many emails asking me that question, and I don't know. He seems like a really hard character to redeem. Like I think he could be, and I contemplated making him the guy in the book that will come after Ben's book, but I don't know. I'm like, I think now that I've got, like, my daughter is 16, almost 17. And so I'm starting to look at these guys from a different perspective. And like, even 10 years ago, I'd be like, oh, he's such a douche, but he's hot. And now I'm like, I would kill him in his sleep if he was my kid. So I don't know. I maybe, but I don't know.
I'm crossing my fingers because I'm very curious about him though.
Yeah.
I just liked him. I was like, what are you doing? But at the same time, like Payne said, it's like, it's intriguing. It's like, I want to know more about him. Like, why is he the way he is? And I mean, I always say this about like the villain of a book. It's like they can redeem themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that he has a really interesting and kind of sad story because obviously his father has always preferred the older brother, and he's spent his entire life scrambling, and nothing he will ever do is going to, get his father's attention. So, yeah, he could have a story. And I think he did kind of redeem himself in the novella that came, the honeymoon one. So,
because there is a scene in the book where he tells Drew how he feels, how everybody prefers Josh. He's like, is Josh this? Everybody looks at him. Everybody cares for him. And I think that scene, you see a little bit of what he's dealing with. And you're like, okay, this is sad. And I get his anger a little bit.
Yeah. And, that's the thing, like with all the characters, like I really didn't want to make it like, there are times in a book where the bad boyfriend is such a jerk that you're like, you kind of don't respect the heroine for ever dating him in the first place. So I didn't want him to make him such an asshole that you were hating Drew, that you were just like, all right, you're an idiot and I don't care about your story. And also Sloane too, like Sloane is kind of a bitch, but then I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this or not. But then she kind of also has like this tiny soft side too. Cause I did, in real life, like nobody is so villainous and everybody's got like a story that has led them to turn into the asshole that they are. So I kind of wanted them all to have a little,
I don't know why, but I loved Sloane. Like that scene where she's trying to act like so tough and everything, but then she comes and sees Drew after she almost drowns, and she's there like helping her. And I was like, okay, there was never a moment that I did not like her. I don't know why, even though she was very like snarky sometimes, and she just, the comments she would make, that I liked her. I'm very curious about her.
Good. Yeah, I think that when I first started writing, I made characters that were more kind of black and white. But I feel like in real life, even the bad guy probably had something terrible happen to him and, has a good side. So,
and I think that's what you did with this book, like with 6 and Sloane, see a side of them where, yeah, they're being jerks, but then they slip a little bit and you see what they're going through a little bit inside. So it's like, oh, they care. They're going through, this neglect and this jealousy, because I believe 6 is full of jealousy towards Josh because he has all the attention.
Right.
So it's like you do write it, but you also give us an insight of how they do have feelings, and it's like they're not just evil.
Right. And I think also like, just like when I'm reading a book, like I kind of prefer to readers, like, I think as a reader, you think you don't want to be worried and scared, but worry is what pulls you through a book. And so I think that when you're not entirely sure who the heroine's going to pick, you're more likely to be like, oh my God, I got to find out what's going to, you know what I mean? Whereas if the guy is so awful, she's not going to, it's not going to end up with her with somebody who's like punching her. So so I prefer to have the situations be such that you aren't 100% sure that she's going to end up with who she's going to end up with.
Yeah. So what other books can we expect from you this year? I know you said you're writing Ben's book. So is there any other books coming out this year?
So Ben's book is coming out in June, and then possibly another book in the Devil series, but I'm not positive. And then I actually wrote, I don't know if they're going to come out. I actually wrote 2 historic vampire novels. And I wrote them last winter, just taking a break from what I was working on. And they were all set to go. They just had to be edited. And then I decided to write Drew's book instead of editing them. So I'll probably get back to those and put those out too.
Oh, I'm intrigued. I wanted to read more vampire books. I'm crossing my fingers for that. I hope you do.
My editor was like, it's like a cross between like Twilight and Pride and Prejudice. So it was fun to write. Yeah.
Elizabeth, we need that. Please.
So before we let you go, we love doing that small game with the author. And so Jen will be doing a this or that game with you.
Okay.
And so I pass it to Jen.
Okay. So vacation or staycation?
Oh, vacation.
Cruise or fly?
Fly.
Desert island or big city?
Desert island.
Budget or blowout?
Blowout.
Leisure or business?
Leisure.
Tropical or snow?
Tropical.
Adventure or relax?
Adventure.
Winery or restaurant?
That's hard. Probably winery.
I was like, please pick winery.
And the funny thing is, I'm getting ready to go to I'm going on a snow vacation next week. So I was kind of like,
oh, that's so fun. Shopping or culture?
Oh, shopping. 100% shopping.
I
So I always go to Hawaii with this friend of mine, and she's like, they've got these museums. I'm like, dude, I don't want to go to a museum. So.
You're like, I didn't come to Hawaii to go to a museum.
Yeah, that's absolutely not happening. If I'm learning something, we have failed.
Yeah. That was me when I went with my sister to New York. She wanted to go to, I forgot what kind of museum. I was like, I did not come to New York.
Oh, she probably wanted to go like MoMA and all that. Yeah. I went to France with a friend of mine, and she was like, all right, so we're going to spend this entire day in the Louvre. And I'm like, dude, I'm giving the Louvre 1 hour and then I'm out. That is all I need to see of the Louvre.
Did you give it only an hour?
I only gave it an hour. She stayed all day and I went and shopped. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us today. It was such an honor and fun. And I am crossing my fingers for that book that you said, because now I'm dying for it. But thank you so much. And we hope you have an amazing weekend.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
I adore her. She's the sweetest. I can't stop thinking about Drew. Like, I loved her. okay, you know how I feel about herons. Like if the hair, I in my opinion, Drew, she's one of the strongest herons I've read.
Yeah.
Ever. And it's like, because yeah, she hides behind, she tries to hide certain parts of her life, but I believe like she truly is strong. She truly is. And I loved her. I love Josh, but I have to give it up to Drew. She was like the best, even though I love Josh and I'm just like rooting from him from page one. And even when he was like snarky towards her, like I was like, oh, you're so mean, but I love you.
Yeah.
So it was amazing talking to her. If you guys haven't picked up The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, please pick it up. It is phenomenal. Enemies to lovers, brother's girlfriend, forbidden. It takes place in Hawaii. She's an artist. He's a doctor. So it's literally, it has all the feels. Pick it up. And then let us know what you thought. I absolutely loved it. And like Pink said, it is one of my favorite books of the year so far.
Yeah.
And I am going to go read her parallel series.
Yes.
I loved Divergent. I was a huge Hunger Games and then a huge Divergent fan. And when she said Theo James, I was like, that's it. I'm reading it.
That's so weird because I've never cared for any of those. I don't care about Twilight. I didn't care about Hunger Games. I didn't care about Divergent.
Really?
I didn't care about any of those.
I will say Divergent, book 1 and 2 were the best ones. And then I never read the third one.
Because he died.
No. Do you really want to know?
I'm not going to read it. So go.
Well, spoiler alert if you haven't read Divergent. The girl dies.
What?
Yeah, exactly. And then 4, which is the hero, which is Theo James, he ends up staying with the best friend of the heroine.
Oh.
So I refused to read the book, the third book.
Why?
So I've never read it. So it's funny because Veronica, the author of the book, when she released the third book, she had like a signing here in Dallas. I went, got my book signed. I made my cousin and my sister go with me, and they were mad because we stood in the Barnes and Noble for hours.
Oh, wow.
I got my book signed, and then I was supposed to start. I was like, I'm going to get home. I'm going to read it. I got home, and then I read an article and it said contains spoilers. And you know how I feel by spoilers. I'm like, I don't really care about spoilers because it makes me even more excited about the book. And in that article, it talks about how she died. I was like, what? So then I read it. I went to Amazon and I was reading the reviews, and I was like, I am not reading it. So I have the third book, never opened. It's signed.
Sell it.
But the first book, I am going to tell you, it is amazing. Like, I loved it. Nothing compares to the first book. I will tell you that.
This is going to totally go off topic and make this longer, but I do know, like, I don't understand when an author kills off one of the main characters. Yep. I don't understand. Like, it hurts.
When Lee kills Rosie, I just wanted to put it there. I'm never, ever going to forget about that. And I still tell her to this day. It still hurts. And I loved Broken Night.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. But I refuse to read the book. Like, if I do read the book, I'm going to skip from a certain part.
I haven't
in my mind, that scene never happened. She cured herself. Yeah. And whatever. But I still love Broken Eye, but I'm still not over the fact that, So, anyway, sorry, totally off topic. But, definitely pick up this book. It is phenomenal. I loved it. And seriously, it's a must read. And if you guys are on Instagram, follow her on Instagram so you don't miss out on any book news from her. I'm really hoping she releases that series that she said.
Yes. I'm really intrigued.
Right? Right. I've been on a vampire craving. Like I read vampire books. So I really hope she writes it. I really hope she does. So make sure you guys follow her on Instagram. It's Elizabeth O'Rourke. And she posts updates. She posts teasers. So make sure you're following her so you don't miss out on any book news. And let's all tell her to please release that series. So make sure you guys keep sticking around. It's so funny. Me and Bing were discussing it yesterday. We literally have authors back to back for the rest of the month.
Yes.
And coming into March.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to our once a month one?
It was all you. I think it was all you.
So make sure you stick around. We are going to be announcing those authors very soon. Plus, we are super, super, super near our 1-year anniversary.
Yes.
And we have a surprise. I'm so excited. I'm nervous. I'm actually pretty nervous right now.
I think we're more nervous than excited.
But
But when we announce it, I'm pretty sure we will be excited. But at this moment in time, we're more nervous about it.
Yes, but it's going to be awesome. So make sure you guys are following us on Instagram. We do have a big giveaway planned because we not only are about to have our 1-year anniversary, we also reached 1,000 followers on Instagram. So thank you so much. So make sure you keep an eye on our page because like I said, we are going to be doing a big giveaway. We hope you guys have an amazing rest of the week. We hope you guys are reading amazing books. Please pick up The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. Please let that be the book you read this week.
Yes.
Please. So next week, we are going to have Mary Elizabeth on here. We're going to be talking about Criminal. The feedback on the book is amazing. So if you haven't picked up that Hush series, please pick it up. But we are going to be talking to her about the Hush series. We're going to be talking to her about her books. Talent. I love Talent. So stick around next week for that interview. If you guys have any questions for her, go ahead to our Instagram and submit your questions in the post that we just posted with her announcement. And if you guys have any questions for us, let us know. Our Instagram handle is @BookBuzzPodcast. We hope you guys have an amazing week and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.